What the Tide Took. Chapter 1. The storm came late that year. The storm came late that year, when the sea was already tired of wind. He stood on the pier with his coat unbuttoned, watching the boats fight the tide like old men arguing about faith. She came up beside him, hair pulled back, face calm in the cold. "You waited," she said. "I did," he answered. "But not for the weather." The sea lifted and fell like an animal breathing under glass. Far out, the buoys flickered red in the distance. They both watched in silence, their shoulders close but not touching. "You still live in that small house by the cliff?" she asked. "I do." "It hasn't fallen in yet?" "Not yet." He smiled faintly. "Everything else has." She looked at him then, and he could feel her studying the new lines on his face. Time had written its small truths there. Around the eyes, the mouth. They walked the length of the pier. Boards creaked beneath their feet. The air smelled of brine and the faint sweetness of old fish nets. "You shouldn't have come," he said. "I didn't come for you," she said. "I came for the sea." He nodded. "That's what I used to tell myself too." They stopped at the edge where a rusted lantern swung from a nail. The first drops of rain began to fall, slow, deliberate. The kind that gives you time to decide whether to leave. "Do you still paint?" she asked. He shook his head. "I stopped the year after you left." "Because of me?" "Because I couldn't see color anymore. Everything looked the same." She looked out toward the horizon. "Maybe it was the light, not me." He said nothing. The wind began to rise, carrying with it a thin salt spray that stung the lips. They went into the small cafe at the foot of the pier, the same one that had been there 20 years before. The door still stuck in the same place. The same bell still hung above it, though now it rang like an old throat clearing. Inside, the lights were low and yellow. The man behind the counter was new, young, polite. He poured coffee without asking. They sat across from each other at a corner table. Between them, steam rose in small white clouds. "You look good," he said. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Don't start with what's easy." He nodded. "All right." She stirred her coffee. "I thought you'd left town." "I did. For a while. Then I came back." "Why?" He smiled. "You can only run from the ocean so far before it catches up." She studied him again. "You still talk like that. Like everything means more than it should. And you still listen like it does." That made her smile, tired but real. They sat in silence for a time. The sound of rain against the windows deepened. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked softly. He didn't look up. "Every day." "And if you could go back?" He met her eyes. "I'd still open the door. But I'd let you walk out slower." Her lips trembled, though she tried to hide it with a sip of coffee. "You know," she said, "it's strange how the past doesn't age. You can grow old, your hands can shake, your voice can go thin. But when you remember, everything's still young." He nodded. "That's the cruelty of it." Outside, the waves struck the pier with a sound like distant thunder. They talked until the rain grew heavy and the streets shone like black mirrors. The cafe empty, chairs turned up, lights dimmed to half. "Where are you staying?" he asked. "The old hotel above the harbor. The one with the crooked sign." He laughed. "That place is still standing?" "Barely. You always did like things that were almost gone." She looked down at her hands. "Maybe I still do." The silence between them grew again, but this time it wasn't sharp. It had a softness to it, like the hush before dawn. He reached for his coat. "I'll walk you there." "I can manage." "I know you can. But let me." She hesitated, then nodded. Outside, the night was thick with sea spray. The rain had turned fine and steady like mist. Streetlights burned in small golden halos. They walked without speaking. The sound of their steps mixed with the surf. "Halfway up the hill," she said. "You never remarried?" "No." "Why not?" He shrugged. "No one wanted to live with a man who talked to ghosts." "You talk to me now." "You're not a ghost yet." They reached the hotel steps. The sign above them buzzed faintly, missing one letter. It read HOEL by the SEA. She turned to him. "It's strange seeing you again. It's like opening a book you once loved but never finished." He smiled. Maybe the ending wasn't ready yet. She looked toward the sea. It was black and vast, with only the faint silver of the storm's edge in the distance. I should go, she said. I know. I didn't come for forgiveness. I didn't offer any. A pause. Then, good, she whispered. She stepped back toward the door. The light from the lobby flickered across her face, then was gone as the door closed. He stood there for a long time, hands in his pockets, listening to the waves below. When he finally turned back toward the pier, the wind had changed direction. The storm had arrived. He walked to the edge of the boardwalk again. The boats rocked wildly now, their ropes straining like tired voices. Somewhere in the dark a gull cried. A single note that vanished in the wind. He thought of her hand once resting on his chest, the way she used to trace the small scar above his heart as if it were a question she couldn't answer. And for the first time in years, he wished the storm would take everything. The boats, the town, even the silence between them. But the storm only rolled closer, patient and deliberate, like a truth that refuses to be hurried. Chapter 2: The morning after the storm. The storm passed in the night. It left the town soaked and hollow, the air smelling of seaweed and rust. When he woke, the windows rattled softly, as if the wind had forgotten to leave. He dressed without turning on the light. The power had gone out sometime before dawn. He boiled water on the small gas stove and drank coffee black, standing by the window. The horizon was pale and clean, like the world had been washed and left to dry. From where he stood, he could see the hotel up the hill. One light burned in a corner window. It looked like a star trying to survive the morning. He almost laughed. She always woke early. Even then. He walked down to the pier after breakfast. The boards were slick, scattered with bits of rope, a broken crate, the torn wing of a seagull. The sea was calm now, pretending nothing had happened. At the cafe, the door was open, the bell still hanging crooked. The young man behind the counter nodded when he came in. Rough night, the boy said. Could have been worse, he answered. They talked a little about the storm. The boy said a few boats had been lost. One belonged to an old fisherman named Tomas, who'd gone out too late trying to secure his nets. The tide took him. He nodded slowly. It always takes someone. The boy hesitated, then said, a woman came by this morning. Asked if you still came here. He looked up. What did you tell her? I said yes. She leave a name? The boy shook his head. Just this. He reached beneath the counter and handed him an envelope. It was damp around the edges, the handwriting sharp and leaning forward. He didn't need to read the name. He carried the letter back to his house. The sea glimmered behind him like something alive and watching. Inside, the room smelled of salt and oil paint, though he hadn't painted in years. Canvases still leaned against the far wall, half-finished storms, faces blurred by time. He sat by the window and opened the letter carefully. The paper tore slightly at the fold. I left early. You were still sleeping and I didn't want to wake you. The sea looks calm again, but that's how it always begins. Don't look for me. I'm not running. I'm remembering. There's a difference. You once said we never choose the people who undo us. Maybe you were right. But maybe it's not about choosing. Maybe it's about who we can't forget, even when the forgetting would save us. There's a place past the dunes where the old lighthouse still stands. I'll wait there until noon. After that I'll go. He folded the letter once, then again. He sat there a long time, the light shifting across the table. By the time he reached the dunes, the sun was high and the sand still wet. His shoes sank with each step. The wind carried the sound of gulls and something else, faint music from a radio in the distance. The lighthouse rose ahead, pale and crooked, its paint peeled by salt and years. He had not been there since before she left. She was sitting on the steps, coat drawn tight, hair loose now, caught in the wind. I thought you wouldn't come, she said. I almost didn't. What changed your mind? The letter. She smiled slightly. Then it worked. They stood together looking out at the sea. The tide was still low, the beach strewn with pieces of driftwood and shells. You always liked this place, he said. It was the only place that didn't lie. He looked at her. You think I did? She didn't answer. The wind lifted her hair across her face. I came back because I thought I could make peace with it, she said finally. With you. With what happened. Can you? I don't know. He nodded. Neither do I. They walked around the base of the lighthouse. The door hung half off its hinges. Inside it smelled of oil, salt, and memory. He ran his hand along the cold iron railing. It's strange, he said, how everything here outlives what matters. Not everything, she said. He looked at her. You're leaving again. Yes. Where this time? South. There's a small island I've never seen. They say the sea there is warm enough to forget. And you believe that? I want to. He took a step closer. Stay the day. I can't. Then stay the morning. She looked at him long and silent. And if I do? I'll make coffee. You can tell me about the island. And we'll pretend it's still possible. Her eyes softened. Pretending was always your gift. Then let me use it once more. She hesitated, then nodded. Just the morning. They climbed to the top of the lighthouse. The stairs groaned beneath their weight. At the top the view opened wide, the sea shining endless and indifferent. He poured coffee from a small thermos he'd carried in his coat pocket. The wind stole half the steam. It's bitter, she said, tasting it. So am I. She laughed. The sound broke something in him. Something that had been locked away for years. They talked about small things. The town. The way gulls always circle the pier before a storm. The fishermen who used to mend nets by the harbor wall. The world felt fragile again, as if speaking too loudly might shatter it. When the clock in the harbor struck 12, she stood. I should go. He didn't move. Do you want me to walk you back? No. You should stay. This is your place, not mine. He nodded. You'll write. No. He looked at her, waiting for the rest. She met his eyes. Some things are better left unfinished. Then she kissed him, brief, certain, without hesitation. It tasted of salt and something older than forgiveness. She turned and walked down the stairs, her footsteps fading until there was only the wind. He watched her cross the sand, growing smaller until she was only a dark shape against the silver water. The sun caught the waves and scattered them into light. He stood there until she vanished completely. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out the letter, and tore it in half. The wind carried the pieces out over the sea. For a long time, he listened to the sound of them leaving. And for the first time he realized it wasn't her absence that haunted him. It was the waiting. The waiting had always been the real storm.